says he, understands where the Freedom Caucus and some of its frustrations are coming from, but this debt deal does not necessarily take all bargaining features away. The House Freedom Caucus Chairman Mark Meadows might disagree with that. Very concerned about this pact that keeps sort of the ceiling an issue not until the middle of December. Chairman, very good to have you. I don't know how much you were able to hear from your old colleague there, but he more or less says you're still all kind of on the same page. Just chill. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I've obviously talked to Director Mulvaney yesterday evening after this deal was announced. We want to see a longer-term debt ceiling bill that has real conservative structural reforms, and obviously we didn't see that yesterday.
What does that mean? In other words, you would have preferred to see spending cuts attached to this, not, in this case, a spending measure, in this case, emergency relief.
Yeah, and I mean, the emergency relief, I believe that should have been a standalone, but that's a tactical question. But really, when we look at the debt ceiling, we've got to get our spending really under control. Neil, you know it, I know it, the American people know it. And so if we're going to do that, we've got to address this debt ceiling vote with some type of structural reform. And so in that, I've just left a meeting where we're talking with our leadership on how we do that to make sure that Chuck Schumer doesn't have the power. You know, we've got a Republican-controlled Senate and House and White House. Well, he has
the presidency here, Chairman. And the reason I'm saying it is now the president is reportedly encouraged that he could find a permanent solution to the debt ceiling, so far working with Chuck Schumer on a way to avoid that, and not you.
Well, I can tell you, I was at the White House earlier today, so I would disagree with that analysis, Neil. I can tell you that what we're doing
what part of analysis? It's just Chuck Schumer, or are you part of that discussion too?
Well, I'm not part of a discussion with Chuck, but here's what I do believe is we can do that with Republican votes. Use the reconciliation tool that is out there that allows us to have a 51-vote threshold in the Senate, allows us to control it on the House side. We've been putting that forward for the last 60 or 70 days. Hopefully now we'll see that we need to take control of this on behalf of our constituency.
Well, then do you buy this report, and it's coming from the Washington Post, others are now echoing this, sir, that the president is eager with Chuck Schumer to pursue a deal that would repeal the debt ceiling, to stop this altogether. Now, you and I've chatted in the past where you kind of resented the way we go about this process, where every 14, 15 months, whatever it is, you go through this kabuki theater and all, but right. It is what it is. And it instills at least some measure of discipline, I guess. But he wants to do away with that, and it seems like he and Chuck Schumer are talking seriously about it. Now, are you part of any of those discussions, or Republicans say, you know what?
Well, we put forth a proposal, Jim Jordan and I put forth a proposal that would actually allow us to cap our spending at 20% of GDP, moving it down towards 18% of GDP over time, which would de facto allow you to have a debt ceiling that would continue to increase as the economy grows.
I see.
And so as we look at that, that's a Republican option. I don't think
that's the option they're talking about here, which leads me to my next question, Chairman. This is more a feeling question, so
I got you. I agree with you. That's not what they're talking about.
Your thought on the president now talking increasingly to Democrats, because he's had it with you guys, had it with the Freedom Caucus that he says fights him at every step in the past, not necessarily now, was critical of this arrangement made hastily yesterday. And maybe he's saying, I can't work with those guys. I might have better luck reaching across the aisle and working with them.
Well, I can tell you that that's not the message that's coming directly from the president. I've spoken to the president since then.
When did you last speak to him?
Last night. I spoke to him last night after this deal, and because I told him.
How did he explain this debt measure thing to you?
Well, it's all about being myopically focused on tax reform, Neil. He wants to get that done. He believes that we needed to clear the deck to do that. I support him in clearing the deck, and so that's why we were at the White House today talking about tax reform and making sure that we make it meaningful, robust,
but his might not jive with yours, Chairman, right? I mean, you want to bring that corporate rate down to 16% or so. I think the president was talking about 15%. We heard, Paul O'Brien, and lately don't sound like a big fan of his, saying 22.5% might be the best we can hope for. I'm paraphrasing here. But it seems like everyone's all over the map.
Well, everybody's all over the map, but the other thing that you have to understand as well is it takes 218 votes in the House and certainly 60 votes in the Senate to get this done, or 51 under reconciliation. And so as we look at that, I'm very optimistic that we will have a conservative tax reform bill that is put forth. But the
Well,
president's a deal maker.
You might have one put forth, but that doesn't mean it will be voted on, right? I mean, the reason why I mention it is I get a sense here that they're kind of, watering down this tax cut, maybe just for the votes and to make something happen rather than nothing happen. But out would be a tax cut, for example, for the rich. Are you comfortable with that?
No, of course I'm not just comfortable with that. It can't be tax cuts only. It has to be tax reform. And really at this point, until there's enough votes in the House to pass a budget to get to that, that's not going to happen.
So you had a package before you, sir, that had tax relief, but not for the upper income. Could you vote for that?
Well, I mean, obviously, lower taxes is always better than higher taxes. But we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity here, Neil, to do real tax reform to get our economy going. A tax cut just on a certain sector of our economy doesn't get it going. So we need to address it across the board. We need to make the difficult choices to make sure that we get that done. I'm committed to doing that. I believe the president is committed to doing that, and we'll get it done.